Hi, welcome to this on Maths prediction for the AQA Foundation Tier Paper 1 Maths GCSE November 2018. Enjoy! Hi, and welcome to this on Maths prediction. Now, this prediction is on our website at onmaths.com. And the beauty of doing it on the website is that the numbers change each time, so you can have absolute practice without just remembering answers. So there will be a link that comes up above my head now, right there, probably, who knows, that will take you to the website. So the predictions that we do are based on previous exam series. And I think we've had 3 series so far, so we've got quite a lot of information about what the exam board likes to put on which paper. So what we've done is we've looked at what questions come up a lot, and we've put those on, and also what questions haven't seemed to come up at all, and sometimes that's a good indication that it's probably their time to come up. So there's a kind of a nuance and kind of a bit of guesswork in it, which is why we always say do not just solely rely on this prediction, but make sure that you do all your revision and use this as part of your revision. Now, we've changed things up a little bit this year, and we're only going to be focused on skills on this prediction. So some of you might do this prediction and it might feel a lot easier than the exam. The reason for that is that AO1, which is the skills-based questions, make up about half of the paper, and maybe just slightly under half of the paper. And what they are, the kind of questions you walk into, and you walk into the exam and you've kind of seen them before, and so they're a bit easier for students to do. Now, the problem solving, the real life application questions are what the exam boards are saying are more difficult. Students get less marks on those. Now, they're less easy to predict because problem-solving questions are essentially questions you should never have seen before and have to work out a solution for yourself. Now, there's loads of stuff on our website to help you with that, and there's loads of other stuff out there. On our website is Demon Questions, the mini-mocks, and the Topic Busters will really help you with that side of things. But this prediction is all about understanding the skills. All the problem-solving and real-life application ones, the harder questions, rely on you understanding the skills as well. So it's really important that you use this paper to just go through and check that you understand the most likely skills to come up on the paper. So the grade boundaries on this paper are only for the skills, so you need to make sure that you understand the other stuff as well. If there's any questions on that, please write them in the question part of this video below me. And if you like this video, please click like, it really helps our channel out. And if you want to see more from us, please click subscribe. Thank you. So in this question we're given a train timetable. And we've got 4 towns. We've got Ashcook, Flute, Risetown and Colip. And the bus is obviously starting at Ashcook and then finishing at Colip, passing through these towns as it goes. So it says that we arrive at 2017 at Ashcook. Now, we will have missed this train and we'll have missed this train, but we'll be in time for this train, so we'll take the 2032 train. Now that will stop at Flute at 2052, but we're looking to see how quick we can get to Risetown, which is the next stop there. We'll get to Risetown 2124. Okay, so we're asked to find 2 fractions that are equivalent to a quarter. The word equivalent just means equal. So what I'm going to do is just go through these fractions and cancel them down. Now, 3/10, well, we can't really do anything with that. That's just going to stay as 3/10. On B, I can divide top and bottom by 4. So that cancels down to be 1/3. On C, I can divide top and bottom by 2 and then 2 again, so that cancels down to 3/10. So I've not found any so far. Let's have a look at D. 2/8 I can divide top and bottom by 2, so half top and bottom, and that's a quarter. and E. I can divide top one by 2 and then halve it again and then halve it again. Now, so the two fractions that are the same as a quarter are D and E. Okay, so here we have a rectangle. We're asked to find the area. Now, the area of a rectangle is the base, which is this one here, times the height, which is this one here. So we just do 3 times 5, which is 15. And the answer will be in centimetres squared. Whenever you've got the word area, you'll always have the units squared. Now we've got to be careful with this question because bid maths tells us to do brackets and indices first, which there is none in there, and then division and multiplication. Well, it means we've got to do this bit first. So I'm just going to copy the 11 plus down. I'm not going to do that yet. And I'm going to do 8 times 6. Well, I know 5 times 8 is 40, so add another 8, that would be 48. And then I'm going to do the 11 plus the 48, which is going to be 59. Okay, so we're going to start by putting our lines in. And we've got a times 11 there, x, and then we've got a minus 5. So we need to get rid of those two things. We need to get rid of that times 11, and we need to get rid of that take away 5. And it really matters which order we do this. If you've got an add or subtract, you've got to get rid of that first. So we're going to get rid of that minus 5 first. We're going to do the opposite of taking away 5. We call it the inverse operation. The opposite of take away 5 is add 5. So we're going to add 5 to both sides. I'm going to show the examiner that by writing a plus 5 on both sides. So we had 11x minus 5. Now we just have 11x. We haven't done anything with the 11 yet. And we're going to add 5 to this side, which will be 33. Okay, next we need to get rid of that times 11 there. So this times 11 there. And to do that we do the opposite of times 11, which is divide 11. So we're going to divide both sides by 11. So we've got x equals 33 divided by 11, which is 3. So x equals 3. And you can check that out by looking at the original equation. 11 times 3 is 33. Take away 5 is 28, so we know it's correct. So we're asked to find 35% of 260. So we know 100% is 260. So I'm going to first of all find 10. And to do that I'm going to just divide the 100 by 10 and the 260 by 10. So 10% would be 260 divided by 10, which is 26. And then I'm going to work out 5%, because I'll need 35, so I need to find that 5. And all I'm going to do is just halve the 10% to get 5%. So half of 26 is 13. Now 30%, I'm then going to have to get that 10% and times it by 3. So I'm going to get that 10% and I'm going to times that by 3. And I can just do it over here. 20. Don't want 30. I want 26 times by 3. So 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus the 1 is 7. So that's going to be 78. And if you've got a different way of multiplying using maybe the grid method, that's absolutely fine. So I can quickly show the grid method here. So 26 would be 20 and 6 times 3. Which would be 60, 18, and then 60 plus the 18 is also 78. Okay, so to get 35, we need to add the 5 and the 30 together. So we need to add this amount and this amount, and that would give us 35%. So we need to do 13 plus 78. So 3 plus 8 is 11, so 1 and then 1 down here, 7, 8, 9, so it'd be 91. So our answer is going to be 91. Okay, so the important thing to realise here is that all angles in a triangle add up to 180. So to find the missing one, we need to take away the 2 that we know, the 72 and the 63 away from 180. So 180 take away 72 plus 63, and that will equal 45. So x is 45 degrees, and you can check that by adding that to 63 and 72, and it gets 180. So we're asked to find two shapes that are congruent. Now congruent means the same. It means exactly the same shape, same size. Now they could be rotated or reflected, but they're the same shape and same size. Now if you have a look at A, and if you have a look at E, they're exactly the same shape, it's just one's been reflected or rotated then reflected. So the answer is A and E. Okay, so when simplifying, it's really important to understand what like terms are. This is an x term, and this is also an x term. This is a y term, and this is a y term. So we're going to add the x terms first, so 13x plus 7x is 20x. And then we're going to add the y terms, so 3y plus 2y is 5y. Now it can be tempting to try and add these together, but these are unlike terms. They're not like terms, so we can't add them together. You can multiply them, so if we times them together it would be 100xy, but when we add them we can't add them. That is our answer. Okay, so in this question we're given the coordinates, which is -2, 1, and we're asked to find out which one of these is at the coordinates. So we're going to start in the middle and we're going to go to -2. So we're going to go across to -2 and then we're going to go up to 1. So the answer for this question will be B. Now don't forget, we always go across first. So this first one, it shows us how far across. So we read off -2 on the x-axis. And then this one tells us where to go on the y-axis. So we go to 1 on the y-axis. And if you see, that point is at -2 on the x-axis and 1 on the y-axis. So the answer is B. Okay, so this ratio looks quite scary because it's big numbers, but the first thing to do on this is just divide both sides by 100. Get rid of 2 of the zeros on both sides. And that looks a lot nicer now. Now they're both even, so I can halve both of them. So I get 5, and half of 30 is 15, half of 4 is 2, so that's going to be 17. Now 5 and 17 are both prime numbers, so I don't think there's 17 isn't in the 5 times table, and 5 and 17 there's not going to be any more numbers I can pick. So my answer is going to be 5 to 17. Okay, so we're asked to round this decimal to 3 significant figures. So I'm going to start just by copying the decimal. Now, with significant figures, we start counting at the start of the number, right here. With decimal places, we start counting at the decimal point. So we're going to count 3 significant figures, so 1, 2, 3, so the line's going to go here. And this 2 is our decider number. Now, if our decider number is 5 or more, that 4, the number to the left of the red line, will go up by 1. If it's less than 5, that 4 will stay the same. Now, because that is a 2, that 4 is going to stay the same. Now, the numbers to the right of that red line are going to turn to 0, but we don't need to write them because they're after the decimal point. So the answer is 30.4. Now there are a couple of different ways to do this. If you have a calculator, you just divide top by the bottom times by 100. But if this is on an uncalculator, you could do short or long division and do it that way. Or there's sometimes an easier way. Percent just means per 100. So if we write this fraction as a fraction with the bottom 100, then the top becomes the percentage. So we've got to think, how do I get from 5 to 100? Well, what's 100 divided by 5? Well, that's 20. So I'm going to times that by 20. And you need to add, you can't add or subtract top and bottom. You've only got to times and divide. So we're timesing by 20 to get to 100. So whatever I do to the bottom, I've got to do to the top. So 2 times 20 is going to be 40. Now that's saying it's 40 per 100, or 40%. So we're asking this question to do a composite bar chart. Now, a composite bar chart just means that it's like a comparative bar chart where the bars are next to each other, but on a composite bar chart, they're just all in one bar. So we're going to have multiple pieces of data. So if we have a look at the table, we've got males and females. So we need a way of telling them apart. And the way of doing that is just to add a key. So my key is going to be blank for males and shaded in for females. And it's really important that you add a key to this so people can tell your bars apart. Okay, so we're going to start off by working out what the scale is. It seems to be going up in 2s. And you don't need to write on what the scale is for each individual mark, but I'm doing it to make it easier to show. So the first one, the males goes up to 12. So let's try and line this up. So they go up to 12 in 1983. And the females go up 2. So I'm going to add another 2 on, which is 1 square. And then I'm going to shade that 1 extra 1 in. And it's that simple. So we're going to do that, and I'm going to cross those out because I've done those. And I'm going to do that for 1984. So we're going to go up to 8 for the males. And then we're going to go up another 4, which is 2 squares for the females. Cross those out now. And finally, we could go up to 4 for the males. And we could go up 12. So that would be 6 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we can check this a little bit by adding these together. That should go up to 14, 12 plus 2, which it does. That should go up to 12, which it does. And this should go up to 16 by adding 4 and 12 together, which it does on our table. So we need to make sure that we have the key, and we need to make sure that a composite bar chart, there's one on top of the other. So the first thing to do with this question is realise that we're looking for possible menu choices, and realise that actually instead of writing sushi and burger, we can just write S and B, and that's normally absolutely fine unless the question asks specifically to write down the words. So the way to start this is just look at sushi first and go through the combinations with sushi. So we can have sushi and ice cream. We can have sushi and strawberries, or we can have sushi and peaches. Now that's it for sushi. So I've done sushi, and now I'm going to focus on burger. So we can have burger and ice cream, we can have burger and strawberries, and we can have burger and peaches. And if you do it systematically like that, you know you haven't missed any. Okay, so the first thing to do in this question is put dots at -13 and -6. It says that x is between them because x is greater than -13 and x is less than -6. So I'm going to do a straight line with my ruler between the two. And last thing to figure out is which of these dots need to be filled in. Well, the -13 can be equal to because there's a line underneath it. So that needs to be filled in. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so we need to fill this in completely. And -6 does not have a line underneath it in the inequality, so it needs to be left hollow, so not filled in. Okay, so in this question we're asked to find the midpoint of the line AB. So if we think about how we get from A to B or from B to A, it doesn't matter which way around you do this. So I'm going to go from B to A, it's a bit easier. I'm going to draw a line across. So we've gone across, let's have a look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares in total. Okay, and then we're going to have a look and see how far we go up. So we go up 1 and 2. So we're going up 1, 2 squares in total. So a midpoint just means a halfway point. So instead of going across 6 squares, we're going to go across 3 squares. instead of going up 2 squares, we're going to go up 1 square, and the midpoint is going to be here. So that is at coordinates 0, 2. So our midpoint is at coordinates 0, 2. So midpoint is just a halfway point. The best way to think of these questions is that the money here, £99, is split into an amount of piles, and J gets 5 of those piles and Anne gets 4 of those piles. The order the names come in the question is the order they are in the ratio. So this is J's stash and this is Anne's stash. So first step, we've got to work out how many piles there are in total. So we add 5 and 4 together, and there's going to be 9 piles of cash. Second step, well, we've got to work out how much is going to be in each of those piles. So we get the 99 and we divide it by the amount of piles. Okay, we want the same amount of money in each pile. So that's going to be 11. So there's going to be £11 in each of those piles. Now, J is going to get 5 of those piles, each pile having £11 in. So to work out how much J gets, we just do 5 times 11, which is 55. To work out how much Anne gets, we're going to do 4 times 11, because she's going to get 4 piles of this £11. So that's going to be 44. We can just check our answer by adding together the two amounts, because we're sharing the whole of the £99 between the two of them. 55 plus 44 is 99. Okay, when drawing a plan, we imagine that we are floating above the shape. This is my rubbish diagram of a person floating above the shape, and we just draw what we see. So things we can't see this side at all, because that's perpendicular to where we're looking, but we can see this side here, and we can see this side here, and we can also see a kind of join between them. So we need to show that on our diagram. So the lengths we can see, well, there's 2 across here. Now the total is 8 across, the bit at the top is 3, so therefore this length here is going to be 5 centimeters. Okay, let's start drawing. So whenever you draw this, it's really important that you don't show any 3D-ness at all. So I'm going to start with the top left. So we've got 2 across there, and we've got 8 across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got 2 up there, and we've got 8 across here. Now it's really important that any changes in elevation or any joins at all, that you show them on the diagram. So that join is 5 centimeters across, which would be here. So any changes in elevation, any joins, anything at all, just draw a line across to show them on the plan, or front elevation or side elevation. Make sure you do it to scale if it asks you to. Okay, so this question asks us to decrease 120 by 26%, and this will be a non-calculator question. So to get 26%, we need 10%. We need then 20% by doubling it. We'll need 5% by halving the 10%, and then we'll need 1% by dividing the 10% by 10. So 10% is easy because we just divide the amount, which is 120, by 10, so we get 12, and then we double it to get the 20%, so 24. So going back to the 10%, if we halve that, then we get 5%, so that's 6. And then to get 1%, we go back to the 10% and divide it by 10, so that would be 1.2. Okay, so which of these do we need to make 26%? So I need to add this one here, so 20, that would make 25%, and then 26%. So it's those 3, so we're adding these 3. So going down, we've got just a 0.2 here. Then we've got 4 plus 6, which is 10, plus 1 is 11. So carry the 1. And then we've got the 2 and the 1, which make 3. So we're decreasing 120 by 31.2. So we're doing 120, take away 31.2. Okay, so I can't do the first one. I can't do nothing take away 2. So I'm going to put a 0.0 there. Go borrow 1 or take 1 from that 2 and carry, and that then becomes a 1. Carry it along. Then I need to take 1 from that 10 and give it to this one. So 10 take away 2 is going to be 8. 9 take away 1 is going to be 8. Can't do 1 take away 3. So that's going to be an 11 take away 3, which is 8. And then that's it. So my answer is 88.8. Okay, so first of all we need to remember the formula for circumference, which is pi times diameter. Now here we're given a radius, therefore to work out the diameter we just times the radius by 2. So 2 times 14, which is 28. So the circumference is going to be pi times 28. Now in terms of pi, it means we don't need a calculator for this. If you imagine that this was x times 28, you would instinctively write 28x. Pi works in the same way. Now, pi is an actual number, so x can be any number, or it can be a specific number. Pi is 3.141, blah, 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 blah. But the notation, the way we show it, is exactly the same as with algebra. So I'd write that as 28 pi. Now, that means if we had a calculator, I would type in 28 times pi and it will give me the answer. In fact, on all the modern calculators, if you just type in 28 pi, it will give you what the answer is. So my answer in terms of pi is just 28 pi. Okay, so a few things we need to realise with this question. First of all, what does product mean? Product just means times. It means if you times them together, that's the answer, right? And we're looking for more than 2. We'll come back to that later. So we're first of all going to do a sample space diagram for this. So we've got the numbers from spinner 2 up here and the numbers from spinner 1 here. But instead of like writing down the combinations, we're just going to write down the answers to the product. So we're going to do 1 times 0, 0. In fact, anything times 0 is 0. Then we're going to do 1 times 1, 1 times 2, 1 times 3, 1 times 4. 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 4. And 3 times 1, 3 times 2, 3 times 3, and 3 times 4. So these are all our possible answers when we spin these two spinners. And what I'm going to do is try and show all the ones that are more than 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 of them are more than 2. So 9 will be on the top of my fraction when I show the probability. And what we need to do is put that over the total amount, including the 9 we circled. So there are in total, when we can count them, or I notice it's a 4 by 4 grid, so it's going to be 16. I can't cancel that. Now be careful, really common mistake is these two. Because it says more than 2, those don't count. So it has to be 3, 4, 5 onwards. Really other common mistake is this bottom number here. A lot of students would put that as, was it 5, is it? No, 7. They put it as 7 because it's all the remaining numbers. No, that's bottom number is always the total amount of numbers. Okay, so we need 4 eggs to make 6 cupcakes. So 4 eggs leads to 6 cupcakes. And we're asked to find how many we need for 18 cupcakes. So to get from 6 to 18, we times by 3. So we're just going to do the same to this side. So times by 3 is 12, so we'll need 12 eggs. What you could have done is found out how many eggs are needed for 1 cupcake, and then found out how many are needed for 18. So you could have divided 4 by 6 and then times it by 18, but without a calculator this is much easier. Okay, so the easiest way of doing this question is to convert the 0.43 into 43. And to do that, I'm just going to times it by 100 to make it 43. So when I've done that, I can just use whatever method I want. I'm going to use the grid method to multiply them. If you use a different method, that's absolutely fine, as long as you get the right answer. So 43 is 40 and 3, 16 is 10 and 6, and we're timesing them. So 10 times 40 is 400, 10 times 3 is 30, 4 times 6 is 24, but it's a 40, so I add 0, and 3 times 6 is 18. And we're going to add those up, 400 plus 30 plus 240 plus 18. So that's going to give me an 8 there, that's going to give me an 8 there, and that's going to give me a 6. Okay, when we've done that, we've got to remember that we timesed it by 100 originally. That means to undo that, we're going to have to divide the answer by 100. So we know that 43 times 16 is 688. Therefore 0.43 times 16 will be 100 times smaller. So that's going to be 6.88. I always find it easier with these questions just to do a simple sum first. So I'm going to do 2 times 3 equals 6. And I'm going to think how I can rewrite this. Well, I can put the 6 here, divide it by the 2, and that gets me the 3. So it's just a matter of moving the answer to the start and picking one of these guys to divide it by, and then we get the other one. In this question we have exactly the same thing. So what I like to do first of all is just rearrange the fact that I'm given. So I'm going to put the 2376 first, then we're going to divide by the 99, and I know that that will get me 24 if I did that. Now we've got to think about what we're doing in the actual question that it's given us. Well, we've times the top by 1000 and we've times the bottom by 100. Now when we times the top by 1000 it will make the answer 1000 times bigger, but when you're dividing it's basically the same as a fraction. Whenever you times the bottom by 100, say, which we have in this question, it actually makes the answer 100 times smaller. So we're making it 1000 times bigger and then 100 times smaller. So what are we doing in total? So one way of doing this is just to split that 1000 up by times 10 times 10 times 10, and the 100 times 10 times 10. So this times 10 will cancel, this times 10 will cancel, and we're just left with a answer that is 10 times bigger. So we've got the answer of 24 with a 0 on the end of it. Now what might be easier is to think of that in terms of divided by 10. When it's at the bottom of a fraction, or you're dividing it by the number, it just becomes a divide by 10. So the answer is 240. Okay, so we have oil and vinegar in the ratios of 21 parts oil and 5 parts vinegar. So the first thing to ask yourself with this question is, how many parts do I have in total? So 21 plus 5, we have 26 parts in total. Now, if 5 of them are vinegar, okay, because the order of these in the question matches the order of the ratio, so it's 21 parts oil, 5 parts vinegar. So 5 out of the 26 total are vinegar. Now, a really common mistake is to do 5 over 21. Just don't forget that there's 26 parts in total, not 21. So it's 5 over 26. Okay, so we're asked to enlarge this shape by scale factor 2, centre of enlargement at 4 minus 3, and then we've got asked to label it B. Okay, now we have the centre of enlargement shown for us, but sometimes you won't be, so that might be the first thing you do, is just write down, put a little cross where the centre of enlargement is. And to do this, there are two ways of doing this. There's a way where you draw the ray lines on, so you would draw the lines on like so, and that's absolutely valid technique. Okay, you draw all the ray lines on. So what I'm doing is joining up the centre of enlargement with each of the 3 points on the shape and just carrying the line on, and that's absolutely fine. I do it a slightly different way. What I need to do is find out how to get from the centre of enlargement to each of those points. So I'm going to start at the centre of enlargement, go to the bottom left on the shape. Okay, so I'm going to jump 1, 2 to the left and 1 up. And if it's scale factor 2, I've just got to do that one more time. So 1, 2, and then 1 up. So it's going to be there. I'm going to do that with the other 2 points. So 1 to the right, 1 up to get to this point. So I'm going to go 1 to the right, 1 up to go to the enlarged point. And finally, I'm going to do it one more time to get that top left one. So 1, 2 jumps to the right, 1, 2, 3 up. So 1, 2 to the left, and 1, 2, 3 up. Okay, and then I'm going to join it up to get my new shape. Join up all 3 points. And it says label it B. Now I always find this much easier to do by looking at how far left, how far up do I have to go. Now if the scale factor is 3, I would do it once, do it again to get scale factor 2, and then do it a third time. So for this green one, I would go another 2 to the right and another 1 up if it was scale factor 3, which it's not in this question, so I'll get rid of that. And it's that simple, and we can just make sure that it's correct by looking at how far, what the width and height of that shape were. It was 1 and 2, and they are now 2 and 4, so we know it's probably correct. Okay, so first of all, we're asked to find that they to prove that they are congruent. Now, congruent means exactly the same lengths, exactly the same angles, exactly the same shape, so exactly the same thing. But you can rotate with congruency. Okay, so the proofs are side, side, side. Well, we only have 2 of the sides. Now, theoretically, we could work out the other side by using Pythagoras' theorem, but we don't actually have to do that. So you could use side, side, side by using Pythagoras, working out the third side, and then working from there. The other one is AAS or ASA, which is angles, angle, side, angle. Now, we're only given one angle, which is the 90 degrees, so we're not going to be using that one. The other one is side, angle, side. Well, we have a side and an angle and another side, but the problem is the angle needs to be between the sides, and here the 90 degrees isn't between those 2 sides, so it's not going to be that one. The last one is RHS, right angle, hypotenuse, side. So let's have a look and see if we've got that one. Well, we've got the right angle, we've got the hypotenuse, and then we've got another side. All 3 of those, obviously the right angle is the same, but all 3 of those are the same. So the right angle is there, the hypotenuse is 12 meters, and then the other side is 7 meters. So the proof that we use for this is just RHS. Okay, so for this question we are asked to comment on the reliability. So if we just try and answer a question on this, and we start by doing the line of best fit, and that's not the best line of best fit, but that'll do. It says a student scored 25 on test A. So if we just start trying to estimate it, so 25 would be here on test A, and then we could read off what they got on test B. But if you have a look, this point here is outside of the range of the data. So we could say it's not very reliable because it's outside of the data range. A posh way of calling that, or posh word for that, is it's extrapolated. So maybe, probably, could not be reliable. Now, whenever I'm thinking about the extrapolation, I'm thinking, well, let's have a think about our heights at our early age. Think about your height from, 0 to 20 years old. It's gradually increasing. Now, if you drew a line of best fit following that pattern, you might assume that you're going to be a 10-foot giant at the age of 30 or 40. Clearly, the pattern, the line of best fit, the relationship, the correlation actually stops, and it could be that the maximum mark you could get on test B was 18, so you couldn't possibly get 19 on test B. So you've got to be very careful of where you're estimating from. Is it within the data or is it outside of the data? If it's inside the data, it's called interpolation, or it's interpolated. Okay, so when it says make y the subject of the formula, it just means it needs y equals. So I always start off with writing the equation or formula down, and I'm going to put my lines in. Okay, so I need to get y on its own. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that minus 1 by adding 1 to both sides. So we've got x plus 1 equals 9y. And then I'm going to divide by 9 both sides. So we get x plus 1 over 9, so all of it over 9, equals y. So the answer is x plus 1 over 9. We're asked here to write 30 as a product of prime factors. And the easiest way of doing prime factors is with a tree. So I'm going to start with 30, and I'm going to figure out what two numbers multiply together to make 30. Now, for all even numbers, I always pick 2, but you don't need to. I know 2 times 15 is 30. Now, the 2 is a prime number, so I can't split that up anymore, otherwise it will just be 1 times 2 and then I can keep going on forever. So I'll stop there with the 2, but 15 isn't a prime number. I know that 3 times 5 is 15, but both the 3 and the 5 now are prime numbers. Now, it says it wants it in ascending order, which means smallest to biggest. And the way we write this, the word product means times. So you write down the numbers, but with a times sign in between each. Now don't do 2 times 3 times 5, because that would just give you 30. The answer is 2 times 3 times 5. Okay, so in this question, you might think that to get the answer to this, you do 40 divided by 5 to get to 8, so you divide that by 5 and you get one machine. The problem is that doesn't make any sense. If 5 machines take 40 minutes, that's almost an hour to make one toy, then what, one machine's going to do it in 8 minutes? It just doesn't make sense. And a question like this that doesn't make sense, if one increases, the other increases, is an inverse proportion question. Now there's an advanced way of doing it where you work out the formula and you do it that way. I'm going to show you a slightly different way that's maybe easier for some people. So if you think about the machines, which is one variable, and the time, which is the other, and we've got 5 machines and it takes 40 minutes, then if we times those together, we get something which I'm going to name machine time. Okay, I've just made that up. So 5 times 40 is 200. Now that 200 there is really special because that 200 must always be the same. The machine time must always be the same. So it says we want to do it in 8 minutes. So I've got to think, right, what times 8 is 200, because machine time will always be the same. So I get my calculator and I'm going to do 200 divided by 8, and it's 25. So let's check that. 25 times 8 is 200, so it works. Now, that is the answer, that we would take 25 machines. Let's just check if it makes sense. So 5 machines take ages. They take 40 minutes to make a toy. Yet 25 machines take only 8 minutes to make a toy, so that makes sense. You'll notice that we've divided that by 5, but we've times this one by 5, and that's the way inverse proportion works. As you divide one of them, you times the other. The word estimate means you should be able to do it without a calculator, even if it's on the calculator paper. So we're going to do this by rounding each of the numbers in the question to one significant figure. So 123 becomes 100. 265 becomes 300, and be careful, a lot of students write 260. It's one significant figure, so it would be 300. And 260 would be too complicated to do. 31 rounds to 30. And 97 goes to 100. Now there's a few different ways you could do it from here. I'm just going to multiply the tops and bottoms and then see what we've got. So 300 times 100, or 100 times 300, is 300 with 2 zeros. And 30 times 100 is 30 with 2 zeros. And then what I can do is divide top one by 10, and then do it again, and then do it again. So we're left with 30 over 3, or 30 divided by 3. So I know that that's 10. Okay, whenever you add, times, take away, divide mixed numbers, you always make them top heavy or improper. So you do that by times the big number by the bottom and then adding it to the top. So we're going to do that. 2 times 5 is 10, add to the top 13. Keep the bottom the same. And 1 times 2 is 2, add to the top is 3. Now we're going to do KFC. Now KFC stands for keep, flip, change. We're going to keep the first fraction the same. We're going to flip the second fraction. And we're going to change the divide. So we're keeping the first fraction the same. We're going to change the middle to a times, and we're going to flip the second fraction. And then all we need to do is times it out. So that would be 26 over 15. Now, I know 1 whole 15 can be taken off 26, and that leaves 11 at the top. So it would be 1 and 11/15. Okay, so we asked Hannah's invested some money in the bank, and she uses a formula to work out how much money she's given after a certain amount of years. So the 2,200 here is the amount of money that she had. The N here is the number of years, and the M is the amount in her account. So the only thing that really hasn't been discussed is this number here. Now, this number here is a multiplier. So to find a multiplier, you start off with 100%, you add on the percentage increase, and then you divide by 100. So we're just going to do the other way. So we're going to start off with the multiplier. We're going to times it by 100 to get the percentage. So it's 101.1%. And then what we're going to do is just take away 100%, because that's the initial amount, and see what we've done to it. Well, we've increased it by 1.1%. So that shows a 1.1% increase. Okay, so we're asked to solve these simultaneous equations, and the first thing to notice is that the coefficients of the x and the y are different. We've got 3 and 4 for the x, and minus 3 and 6 for the y. So looking at that, I could times the top by 4 and the bottom by 3 to get the x's the same, but all I need to do is times the top by 2, so I'm going to do that. So 6x minus 6y equals 30. I'm just going to copy in the other equation underneath. Okay, so with simultaneous equations we work downwards. So I'm just going to highlight that. It's always useful to highlight it. And the rule is that if the matching coefficients have the same sign, we subtract. If they have different sign, we add. So looking at this, they have a different sign, so we're going to add, okay, because you've got minus 6y and positive 6y. So 6x plus 4x is 10x. Minus 6y plus 6y is going to be nothing, which is good because we need it to be nothing. And then 30 plus 10 is 40. Next, go put the lines in, and we're dividing both sides by 10. So x equals 4. And that's only half our answer. We need to substitute that into an equation. I'm going to pick the top one to find out what y is. So we've got 3 times 4 minus 3y equals 15. And I'm just going to put the lines in. So that's going to be 12 minus 3y equals 15. Now the minus 3y is going to be a problem, so what I could do is I could add 3y to both sides at this point and then take away the 15. I'm going to carry on though, so I'm going to take away 12 both sides. So we've got minus 3y equals, 3. Now at this point, if I divide both sides by minus 3, it's kind of like dividing by 3, but it gets rid of the minus on the left hand side and it introduces a minus on the other side. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. So that's minus 1. Now at that point, if you ended up at this point and you don't quite understand what I did there, something you can do is just times both sides by minus 1, and what that does is it just flips the sign. So it makes the minus 3y a positive 3y and the positive 3 a minus 3. So everything switches sign, and then you can just divide by 3 both sides of y equals minus 1. Whichever way you're most comfortable with. Now I can check this by putting it into the second equation, and what is it, 16 take away 6 equals 10, so we know it's right. Okay, so we're asked to write the standard form number as an ordinary number. Now that just means a number you would recognise from the first time you used maths. So first of all we write down the number, so 4.51. Now if the power is a positive, we jump to the right, but if it's negative, we jump to the left. Okay, this is clearly a negative, so we're going to move the decimal place 5 times to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the decimal point is going to be here. Now any jumps we did that weren't over numbers, we need to fill them in with zeros. And you always start a decimal with 0 point, and that's our number. So let's write that out. 0.1234, 4, 5, 1. Now an easy way of remembering it is if you've got a negative power, you've always got a very small number. If you've got a positive power, you've always got it represents a really big number. So if you've got a negative, you should be getting a decimal. Okay, so we've got a right angled triangle for this question, and we've got 2 lengths and an angle, so it's going to be a trigonometry question. But it's going to be on the non-calculator most likely, so we need to try and find a way of finishing it off. But I'm going to start it as I would do normally. I'm going to go to the right angle, go opposite that, and that's your hypotenuse. I'm going to go to the marked angle, opposite that is the opposite. And the one left over is the adjacent, and that's the one between the right angle and the marked angle. And then go cross out the one we're not using. Well, A is 1 centimetre, O is X, so H isn't useful to us. Going to write out SO, CA, TOA, which obviously you need to know off by heart, which are the 3 triangles, trigonometric ratios. Now we're going to cross out the ones with H in because we're not using H, so we're left with TOA. Now TOA stands for tan the angle, which is 60 in this question, equaling opposite, which is X, over the adjacent, which is 1. And because we don't have a calculator, we can't then finish off this question without using the method I've described in an earlier video, so I'll leave a link in the description, where you just write out the numbers 0, 30, 45, 60 and 90. And the idea here is to work out the exact values of tan 30, tan 45, tan 60, is you circle the one you're trying to find. Well, here we're looking for tan 60, and you put the numbers on the left as a square root over the numbers on the right as a square root. So with this, it's going to be square root 3, because there's 3 numbers on the left, over square root 1, which just equals root 3 over 1. So to find out the value of x, well, if tan 60 is the same as root 3 over 1, and we've got the adjacent as 1, then x needs to be root 3. Okay, so for this question we're told y is directly proportional to x, and a different way of writing that is y fish x. Fish isn't its technical name, but it's what it looks like. Okay, it says when y is 32.8, then x is 4. So whenever we have y fish x, or y is directly proportional to x, we can get rid of that fish by changing it to an equals, but we have to introduce a constant, which we call k. K for constant. Okay, I know constant starts with a C, but we always use k. And then what we do is we put in the values that it gives us in the question into this new equation. So this becomes 32.8 equals 4k. We need to work out what k is, so we draw our lines. So we're going to divide both sides by 4. And so I use my calculator. 32.8 divided by 4. And it says that the answer is 8.2 equals k, or k equals 8.2. Go back to the original equation we've got here, but this time we know that k is 8.2. So y equals 8.2x. Now, y and x are constantly going to be changing, but the k will stay the same. On a graph, you know the k as the gradient for this equation. Okay, the way of doing this question is to do a quick number line. Now we're going to put 130 in the middle. Now it's the nearest 10, so I'm thinking what would the next one down be? Well, if we had slightly less, if we had 128, it would still round to 130. So the next one down that it could have rounded to is 120, and the next one up it could have rounded to is 140. Now to find the intervals, we're going to work out the halfway between the two. So I'm going to work out this one here and this one here. So halfway between 120 and 130 is 125, and halfway between 130 and 140 is 135. Now, it says it wants h for the height, so we're going to put h in the middle. I'm going to put 125 to the left of it, and 135 to the right of it. Now, h could have been, h was greater than, but it could have been 125 as well. So we have a little arrow underneath a little equals underneath the inequality. H was less than 135, but it couldn't be 135, otherwise it would round up to 140, so we don't put the equal sign there. Now this middle bit here, that will always be the same when you're answering this question, when you're asked for the error interval. The letter here might change. It might be fussy and ask you for a letter, or it might not. It might just say, just use any letter. If it says use any letter, X or N or whatever you want to use is acceptable. But the signs here will always look like this for an error interval. So we're given us a few sets in this question, and we're asked to complete the Venn diagram. And it says that A is multiples of 4. It says that A and B is 16 and 36, and it says A or B is all of those values. So first thing the easiest thing to do first of all is use this information. A and B are the values that are in both of the circles A and B. So we can fill that in quite nicely, quite easily, and we can actually cross those off as we go. Okay, next ones to figure out are the ones that are just in A. With 16 and 36 are in both, then all we need to do is just find the numbers in the 4 times table in our list at the top. And the list at the top, I think of it E for everything. Those are all the values in the total Venn diagram. So we've got 12 and I think we've got an 80 there. So 80, we go down there. Okay, now looking down our list at the bottom, we've got a list of values that are in A or B. That just means could be in A, could be in B, could be in both. Well, we've already should cross out some of these because we've already used them. So 16 and 36, and it leaves us with 1 and 17. Well, they've got to go somewhere, so they can go over here. So 1 and 17 have been used up. And the problem is that it says that we also have an 11 and 27, and they've not been assigned to anywhere inside the Venn diagram, so they're going to go outside. And I always just check by adding up how many numbers I've put down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I should have put down, and I'm counting the numbers at the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So chances are I've got it right. Okay, so we're told the equation we're looking for is parallel to y equals 11x plus 5. Now there's only one piece of information there we need, and that's the gradient, because parallel means it will have the same gradient. And the gradient is the number before x, okay, because we've got our equation y equals mx plus c, or formula even, and the m stands for the gradient. Okay, we know it passes through a point as well. When x is 4, y is 46. So we can use those two pieces of information to find out the equation, because the only thing we have missing is the y-intercept, because we've got the gradient already from the other line. So let's start writing that down, what we know. We know it follows y equals mx plus c. We know when y is 46, then x is 4. And we know the gradient is 11, so 11 times 4 plus c. And we can just simply solve this to work out what c is. So we've got 46 equals 44 plus c, and c will therefore equal 46 minus 44. And I've just switched them around, just so we've got c equals, which equals 2. So we know the gradient's 11, and now we know that the y-intercept is 2. So it's going to be 11x plus 2. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you liked it, please click like, and if you want to see more from us, please click subscribe. Don't forget you can go to our website where there's this paper, but there's also a whole load of other practice, and we've got topic busters for every single topic that you can go through, all obviously completely free, and you can sign up and it saves your scores. There's also a new function, a new thing we've got called the Revisionator, which is really good for the basic skills as well. So you can rattle through a random set of skills to test that you're ready. I hope all the best of luck for you on your exam, and if you do well or if you don't do so well, please let us know either way. Thank you very much.